Hey, thank you for joining us for our Parent Q Live. The fact that you're here today speaks volumes as to who you are and how you love God and how you love your family. Proverbs 22:6 is a verse that you've heard many times. Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they get old, they will not depart from it. I like that word train, and I know that you do as well. That word train speaks to intentionality, on purpose. And so for the fact that you are being here tonight, you are saying it is on purpose in your life that you care about the eternal destiny of your children. It's been a number of years ago, but I was sitting in a class at seminary, and a visiting professor was there, and he made this comment, and I've never forgotten it. He said, the children that you have at your home are your missionaries to the world. And I had never really heard that phrase before, and I had never really been able to couch it just like that, but it changed how I parented. That the kids, the children that I have at home are our representatives to the world to represent Christ. Friends, thank you for being here. God is using you, and the tools that you take away from tonight are going to help you prepare your missionaries for the world. We love you much.
From the day your child is born to the day they graduate, you have 936 weeks. 936 weeks of soccer practice and homework, and teaching them to use deodorant. 936 weeks to instill values, to build character, and to prepare them to face the world. You want to be a great parent, and we're here to help with each moment of parenting gold. Driving your 4th grader to practice, saying goodbye to your 10th grader as he's walking out the door, eating tacos in the kitchen with your 7th grader, tucking your toddler in at night. These moments happen every week, and we want you to be aware of the time you have left, because when you are, you do more with the time you have now. We cue you with easy, just-in-time ideas of things to say, things to do, and things to think about to connect with the heart of your child. Our cues are grounded in God's big story, so your child can discover the power of faith in those everyday moments of life. Every cue fits the context of your child's developmental phase. We cue you when your high schooler won't leave their room, your middle schooler won't pick up their clothes, your 2-year-old won't stop talking. We help you understand these moments, and we help you connect. You only have 936 weeks. You can't afford to waste them. Parent Q. It's what we do. Download it for free today.
Hey, welcome everybody. We are excited to have our 3rd Parent Q Live event. You know, we did our first one on technological responsibility way back in the day.
Way back.
And then we did our second one on sexual integrity. That one was super comfortable for all of us. And this month we've been talking about healthy habits. And we're just going to have a quick conversation about what healthy habits and helping lead our students toward healthy habits looks like for your 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
That's right. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, middle school years. There's a reason why they call it middle school, because they are literally in the middle between being little kids in elementary school and starting to become like real adults in high school. And so they are right there on those middle school years, and it's kind of this weird, awkward age where there's a ton of stuff going on, where all of a sudden they went from they could play all day and never really smelled to now they go out and hang out for 5 minutes and your boy comes home smelling like a bag of onions. They are going through changes. They are going through changes. And how do we help guide them in healthy habits? So, you know, this one, it's going to be a little bit easier than our sexual integrity ones and some of the other stuff, but they're good reminders, parents. These are going to be good reminders on how to help our middle schoolers develop healthy habits, whether it's physically and also emotionally. So I'm going to let Andrew take the fun one here.
So, puberty. Let's all say that together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Puberty. We all know that middle schoolers have like a million different hormones running through their little bodies and their crazy little brains, and their minds are moving a million miles an hour. But you know, our students at this age are changing, and nobody knows that more than you. These are really important years to talk about those changes with your kids and be open with them about that. So dads, don't just rely on schools to do the job of having these conversations with them. Sometimes moms like to really encourage these conversations and make it uncomfortable. But dads, we can't just rely on our schools to do these jobs for us. Your sons might have questions that they're not going to ask you openly. So we have to be the ones that pursue them and have these conversations. It's up to us to be willing to talk to them about that. So think about your own experiences, your own questions that you had while you were in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years, those feelings that you had for that girl in your 6th grade science class that you just didn't know how to talk about.
Oh.
Start with those experiences.
That was specific.
Yeah, well, I don't even, that doesn't relate to me at all, I promise you.
Okay.
Tell them funny stories about things that happened to you. Just allow openness in that conversation. The key is creating an environment and a space that your students feel comfortable with when they have questions. And don't tease them about the changes that they're going through. That's not going to help them. And more importantly, don't tease them about the changes that they're not going through, because sometimes their lack of change creates really anxiety within them. Sometimes they're comparing themselves to other students around them, like the experiences that they're having or not having, and it can be damaging to them if we tease them about that.
Yeah, some of us are late bloomers, all right? So just give them time. They will get there. So that's my cue as a former late bloomer. All of the little things in between, parents, when it comes to that, talking with your kid about deodorant and hygiene and all that fun stuff. These are just good reminders for us. One of the big things we also want to talk about, though, is when your middle schooler is going through changes, it's not just going to be physical changes. There's going to be a lot of emotional and mental changes taking place, too, which was often overlooked. We all watched the puberty videos, and we had, the guys had the guy gym teacher came in, or the one male teacher, and girls did their thing. But we really never used to focus on the mental changes that are taking place. Mm-hmm. And that's a big factor, especially now, even more so than ever after the year and a half or so that our students have gone through. A lot of major things have taken place. And so we really want to also focus on this idea of the emotional and mental things that are taking place in their lives. And one of the big things for a middle schooler is really, it has to do with their body, but their body image and their self-awareness of where do they fit in. And it used to kind of be like a girl thing, body image, but it really truly is, it's a guy and a girl thing. Guys are comparing their height just as much as how girls compare themselves. Guys are constantly trying to figure out who's stronger, where do I fit in, am I cool or am I not cool? In the same manner that girls are trying to figure out, where do I fit in? How do I compare to that girl over there, this person over here? And so we need to talk about these things with our students. We need to kind of figure out where are they with those things. We need to let them know that it's okay to grow at their own rate, or really ask them about themselves. Find out what's really going on. It's a different way, because you're going to ask them how they feel, and they're probably going to give you a one-word answer. So you might have to dive in a little bit deeper. You might have to really see if you see changes in their friendships or different things taking place where they used to be hanging around with a certain group of friends and now they're not. It's not okay just to find out okay, so you're hanging around with someone new now. You need to ask why. What happened in that friendship circle? Because that's probably playing some sort of factor in that kid's life right now. And so we need to help teach them and guide them on how to create healthy ways of dealing with those feelings. Mm-hmm. And so if they are coming home with just anxiety, if they're coming home with just a lot of pressure on fitting in or where do they belong, how do we help them to cope with those situations? How are we talking with them about dealing with stressful situations? These are all going to be really important conversations to have with your middle schooler, because if they don't feel like they fit, if they don't feel like they belong, what we are seeing then is they are starting to make this choice that I don't fit in and I don't belong. And that's creating, can lead to self-harm and lots of other emotional instability. And so as parents, we need to have those conversations ahead of time with them and help them and guide them to have a healthier mindset about themselves and just teach them hey, it's a change going on in life, but it's not going to be a permanent thing. So how do we deal with it right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keeping those conversations is So important, because their spiritual and mental health is so important during those years. You know, it may sound kind of cliche, but during 7th and 8th grade, statistically, as we look at statistics, more than likely your students have been exposed to like drugs and alcohol of some sort, whether that be at school or hanging out at friends' houses or just being out and about at student events and things of that nature. Not student events here, hopefully. No. And you know, once upon a time, it was easy just to say, well, just say no to drugs. But really, it's not enough to say just like drugs are bad, don't do it anymore. Talking about the health and the dangers that drugs and alcohol can have on a 12 to a 14-year-old body is very important. And sometimes that can be the catalyst that makes them make the right choice in those situations. If they know the harm that it's going to do to them, it's not just enough to say, don't do it, it's not good for you. But going into why it is not good for them, discussing with them health issues, opens their minds up a bit more than just, this is good, this is bad, do this, don't do that. And it lets them ask questions. There again, it just keeps that conversation open and going between you and your students. What do they do if their friends are doing some of those substances? Talk with your mid-schooler about ways that they can say no that they're comfortable with. It doesn't make them feel isolated from their peers. Have them come up with a plan. Come up with a plan. Almost all of your students, not every student, but almost every one of you have given your students a cell phone at that age. And have a plan to come up with that if they're faced with those situations and they know a plan that is in place to help them feel safe, whether that's like calling you and using a separate name, or I don't know, coming up with a plan that helps them face those situations. That way that they already know exactly how they're going to respond if they're put into one of those positions.
Yeah, and that's a huge point. We had a student here, freshman year in high school, years ago, and he said, you know, the easiest thing when he was faced with this, he had friends that were starting to kind of take that turn and down the path. And he said, my dad always gave me a way out, and I knew what to say. And so it made it easy. And his was, it was some big punishment. He's like, my dad's already told me if I've gotten caught with this, then something was going to happen. So his dad, he's like, I used my dad as a scapegoat, but it worked and it kept me off of it. But the point was, his dad and mom had already had a conversation with him about that when he was faced. And parents, I know Andrew already said it, but make no mistake, 7th and 8th grade year, your kids have heard it. They've probably seen it. These things are real. We cannot bury our heads in the sand with that. And so, again, these are reminders. I don't think we're coming up with any groundbreaking stuff here that you didn't know about. This idea of puberty is not something new, but a reminder to talk about it might be something you're thinking, I probably need to keep those conversations going. A reminder about emotional health is something that we kind of avoid or tiptoe around, but having those conversations is a good reminder. The drugs and alcohol, all right? For those of you that, 80s kids, Nancy Reagan, that just say no, well, this is a new generation, and they want to know why. They have the world of answers at their fingertips, and so they're going to be asking, well, why is it bad? And so these are good reminders as parents. Man, we need to have those conversations that were probably a little bit different than what our parents had with us. And so here's just a few little things we wanted to offer you as like some 3 reminders of navigating some healthy growth in your home with your students. This is something, Andrew and I are in the same boat with you guys. You're about to have a kid jump into student ministry in a middle school. I have a high schooler, 2 middle schoolers, and an elementary. So I'm covering all the bases here. So these are things that we're not even perfect at, but we are trying to put these things and implement them. And we hope that you can find some of these tips helpful too. So
yeah, one of the first things I think that can help, just like anxiousness and anxiety within our kids, limiting screen time. We can't stress that enough. We've looked and looked and looked and know that statistics tell us that any student in middle school shouldn't have more than 2 hours total of screen time per day. And I think that I think that when we look at this and we kind of even evaluate our own selves like that, sometimes that is not a good evaluator for me. So it's just an accountability thing that we can have with our students. But why is that an important thing? Why is limiting screen time an important thing? If they're on the screens, they're not being active. It's not good for their health necessarily in that way. If they're on their screens, they're most likely on social media of some sort, which is proven to build anxiety in students and young adults in general. It just builds anxiety. They constantly are looking around and comparing themselves to everyone else. Can I live to that standard? Am I as good as that person? Do I look a certain way? Do I look like that person?
Which, it's all right, it says it on our notes, but that leads back into the body image and the self-awareness and comparison game that leads to that anxiety and depression that we see in middle schoolers, which is what he's saying is so important when it comes to screen time.
Yeah, all of that just builds stress from it, and anxiety just pours over from the real world. And there's so many healthy benefits to limiting screen time, not only for our middle school students, but even for us as a family as well. And that one hurts for me to really think about and say out loud, because sometimes I'm not great at that.
Yeah. Again, these are just simple little things that you can do. Sleep and exercise is a huge thing with middle schoolers. And I know it's not always easy to get that, but removing distractions from their bedrooms or setting those times up is going to help. And so we know that a middle school student is supposed to get 8 to 9 hours. 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Now think about when your kid goes to bed, they probably wake up at 6:30. That means a middle school student, although they think they can stay up till midnight every night, they really should be going to bed around 9:30-ish. I just got through a few weeks ago asking a group of our middle schoolers, how late do you stay up on a given night? All of them have said somewhere between 11:30 to midnight because they're watching Netflix. So Andrew's thing on screen time and sleep go hand in hand. Sleep deprivation causes anxiety, depression, mood swings, irritability, anxiousness, frustration, and lack of focus. I probably just described every mid-school kid already, but now we are just building on that when we're not setting times for their sleep. Yeah. These are little things, parents, and it might be tricky to get into that rhythm in your home to get them in bed and even just remove some of the distractions from them, but it will be beneficial, I promise you.
Yeah. I think the last thing that we can give you just encouragement is encourage them to have time with God. These are the years that their faith starts shifting from the faith of their family to the faith of their own personal self. And this is the time where they can start to really read and apply God's word on their own. But we can't just rely on them doing it on their own. This is something that we as parents have to encourage them in. Talk to them about what they're reading. Ask them questions about it. Again, just keep that conversation open enough that they're coming to you with questions that they want to talk about. Like, I don't understand this. Can you help me understand this if they're not understanding it? But spiritual health is just as important as physical health or mental health.
Yeah, and one of the verses that Andrew pointed out earlier when we were kind of going over this was in 1 Timothy 4:8, where it talks about physical training is good. So healthy habits, all of that stuff is good. But training for godliness is much better, promising benefits in this life and the life to come. And so we know that healthy habits when it comes to physical aspects are good. But when it comes to starting to create healthy habits for our teenagers following after Christ, that's going to play the long game. That's forever type of stuff. And so we have tools that are available. We have apps that we use. You can follow us along. Our middle schoolers go through a devotional all the time together. So lots of areas you can help do that. So parents, the most important thing, we're trying to keep this short here. Thank you for checking things out. But I think one of the biggest things we need to remember as parents is we model the behavior. And just like what Andrew was saying with the cell phone thing, sometimes that can be tough when it comes to screen time or, turning something off and picking up a book. It's not always easy, or just being putting the phone aside and turning it off for a little while at a time. These are modeled behaviors, but also physical parts of it. It sometimes can be tough. It's learning, okay, I probably need to eat a little, have a little more healthier snacks available around the house because my kids are devouring everything, and I need to maybe even as a family, we are making choices together on how to be healthier. We're taking walks together, and even how we talk about our own bodies. One of the big things that I've noticed is if I'm negative about something, then my kids start noticing in their life. Or if I'm talking too much about what I'm eating or not eating, then they take it to an extreme because they're teenagers. It's what they do. And so modeling healthy behaviors as parents and having a healthy, balanced lifestyle that we have and modeling that to them. And that's going to be really key right now during these middle school years. So thank you for checking this out. Hopefully, maybe it was just good reminders. Maybe there's one or two things you say, hey, I can start doing that now. But developing healthy habits for your kids right now is going to be vital. So thanks a lot for joining us.